Welcome to the Dating After Divorce podcast. I'm your host, Shade Curry, and I believe every divorced woman deserves a romantic relationship where she feels safe, loved, and cherished. You can create the most amazing life after divorce, and I will teach you how. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Dating After Divorce podcast. I am here with another guest for the Remarriage Club series. Here with me is Nina Everflow, and Nina helps online entrepreneurs build educational curriculum. She's also divorced and happily remarried because that's the criteria to be on the podcast. Welcome, Nina. Please introduce yourself to the listeners.
Oh, it's such a pleasure to be here. I love talking about this topic and all of the good, juicy learning that comes from this experience. So thank you so much for having me. Hi, everyone. I'm so grateful to be with you. I am an instructional designer by trade and have for many years helped leaders and business leaders and employees really rethink how they're developing learning experiences online. And I like to say that I am disrupting the e-learning industry by redefining results as values aligned for behavior change instead of just, doing different actions. So we're here to really, support people in doing the things that they say they are all about.
That's amazing. That sounds really good. So who's your typical client?
Yeah, so mostly I work with nonfiction authors, so who have books around topics of leadership development, personal development, diversity and equity, those kinds of things. And then we create online courses based on the content from their book. But I also do it with other online entrepreneurs who maybe have content from other things or just have a lot of brilliant ideas. They just want to create an online learning experience from it. And so my process sits us down to kind of drill down to, what are those key things that you really want people to do differently that are really going to get them transformative results.
That sounds amazing. That sounds like something you and I need to talk about at some point.
Okay, ma'am, I'm here for it.
I was like, I should just turn this into a podcast episode where I'm asking you all the things. But no, we'll do that. We'll do that after. Well, welcome to the podcast. Tell us a little bit about your divorce. I know when we talked earlier, you said you were overseas when you met your first husband. Mm-hmm. So let's start off with that story.
Yeah. So I am born and raised in the United States and have traveled abroad quite a bit. But this particular trip was in 2005 when I went to the African continent for the first time. So that alone was a huge, huge experience just as an African American traveling to the continent. And I stayed there for a number of months. And during that time, actually the local NGO that I was working with, the woman who ran that organization, it was her nephew who was, just had his eye on me, became friends. And then we went dancing a couple of times. And then it just kind of turned into like, okay.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
This whole thing. But he was, he was charming and a gentleman always. And certainly, was also excited and eager about the possibility of returning with me to the United States. And so that was a whole process in of itself to bring over a fiance on a immigrant status. And then when we got here, we settled in a place where there were lots of West Africans. And I think that certainly helped his transition and my own in also understanding, just more of the culture and more of the dynamics between men and women and what that could look like, right? So it certainly was a beautiful and yet challenging kind of cross-cultural experience for many years.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask you a little bit about that because this is actually something I ask women that I work with to look out for is that the experience you're having may be very different from the person you're having the experience with.
Oh, yes.
Do you think that was part of it? Like you were back to the motherland for the first time. You were like in this space, learning so much, like reconnecting with your identity. Like, do you think that was part of what caught you up?
Oh, yes. Yes. And definitely, you know, that yes comes from hindsight, right? In the moment, I wasn't seeing it. I was just seeing there is this beautiful human over here and I'm just in love with the land and look at all these chocolate people. Like I just bliss, right? All around. But certainly in hindsight, I recognize I can distinguish like the experience that I was having was really a spiritual like homecoming of my own for my own lineage, right? To reconnect with that land. And it kind of spilled over into this one individual. Let me create a new relationship that even connects me deeper to then the continent in that very tangible way. But I do think about what if I had not made that choice, right? And just created a relationship to the experience, to the larger, right, connecting point in being in Sierra Leone for that time without having a specific individual involved.
Yes, so good. And, you know, a lot of times because we're so we're just raised and conditioned as humans to be externally focused.
Yeah.
So it's hard for us. I mean, and I always ask women to just have so much compassion on their younger selves. I'm like, there was no way you could have done anything different, right? Like, it just wasn't going to happen. That we don't realize how much we bring to our experiences and how much we are creating the experiences and the results that we're having in our lives. Yeah. And we give so much credit to people outside of ourselves for making that happen.
Oh, that's so true. Yeah. And I think another thing that kind of points to, right, like this focus on the external is that, you know, as a Black American being raised in the South, in the States, I had a lot of challenging experiences with dating Black men, like not so much like once we were dating, but like finding Black men who were interested in me, right? Because there was just so much like cultural stuff, right? About colorism and about da 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 da. But so being in West Africa, where there are all these beautiful Black men. Right. And then exactly. And then being the American, which then makes me the point of attention, right? Wherever I go, it really was just, you know, that 20-something girl was just like, yes, I will soak all of this in. Yes. Thank you. Finally. So there's some really interesting dynamics, right? About that externality of self-identity. Like finally someone is looking at me and sees me. But it came at a time when I wasn't really seeing myself. That definitely came later.
100%. Oh my gosh, that's so good. So you both moved back to the United States and you joined the West African community here. So you were living in a place that was like, you know, had more immigrants in it.
Yeah. So we were in Washington, D.C. in suburbia. And so there's a high concentration of Sierra Leoneans and West Africans in general there. And so, you know, all the weekends, parties, weddings, birthday celebrations, funeral, right? Like the social calendar was immense. And as an introvert, I began to notice like I became more and more disengaged as the years passed, just totally taxed out, dreading the weekend because there would be so many things that we were expected to show up for, and not knowing how to communicate that for myself. So that was an interesting dynamic about the social pressures that were on us to show up for, that I wasn't raised with that level of intensity of just like, you spend your weekend with dozens of other people, right? Like all day, every day, like that's just the thing to do. And it wasn't, and I had a really hard time communicating that and really distinguishing that from him. Like I started to just blame him, be resentful about he was pressuring and signing us up for all of these things, right? Because, you know, he expected me to show up and then to be, be a social butterfly like he was a social butterfly, right?
Yeah.
So those dynamics were certainly showing up a lot in our early years. And then I was going to graduate school and I got pregnant like my second year of graduate school, which was stressful in and of itself, working full time, trying to complete an MA, and then being pregnant, and then having this like rocky foundation, right, about our relationship. But what I think was amazing at that moment was this like, hey, I'm in control here. Like I have some options about what do I want to do with my life. And particularly when I got pregnant, it became, that question became more urgent to get clear on.
Yes. And I love that you said you realized that you had options, because I think, I know I stayed in my marriage for 17 years. I think, I don't think it was a conscious thought, but I think there was a subconscious assumption that I didn't have options. And it's something that I've heard over and over and over again with women who just, it's like there's one or zero. I'm either going to be here and be miserable, or do this other thing that's extreme and be miserable. It's like there's no options for happiness here.
Yeah.
So when you started realizing that you had options, like what were the options that you thought about? What came up for you as like, oh, I could do this differently or do this differently?
Yeah. So one of the first ones was, I could stop going to all the parties. So that was one of literally, and it feels so silly to like describe now at this moment.
But it's
at the
real.
time, it was so significant to have that conversation with him. And then with a couple of the aunties to explain, it wasn't that I didn't love my husband. It's just that I don't like to go to all, right? Like there were all this like ripple effect of that choice. But that was pretty significant. To own my social calendar again, and to redefine how I wanted to engage with the family.
And you had said earlier that you thought of it as, well, I'm allowed to want what you want.
Yes, right. But it's really tricky though, right? Because you have the aunties, the uncles, and there's so much ease around judgment. So it really was like this strengthening of like, all right, just gonna build up the armor so that the judgment doesn't keep me from doing what I know I need to do.
Yeah. Was there a lot of pushback?
Oh yeah.
Changed?
Yeah. I mean, a lot, some of it, I think was just from like, but why? Like just really authentic confusion of why would you not just want to hang out? Because that's what we're doing. We're just hanging out together, and and I think some of it really then just became like, well, that's just Nina. Like this, I don't know if that was the motif of because she's American, because she's Black, because she's a book nerd. I don't know, right? Like they made up some stories, and it was fine. But then I think it did also help me identify, once I made that choice, it was just like, okay, well, I can make some other choices around like, how I want to vocalize my needs about, goodness, what was going on at that time, just like how I wanted to birth this baby. So he would, we had some friction about those dynamics, where we wanted to live, how expensive it was in the DC area, right? Like, so it just kind of started to grow like this better ability to advocate for myself, bit by bit, right? There was never a moment where I was just like, okay, I have arrived and I am now the best self-advocate ever. It was just one hard conversation after another.
Yeah, no, that's so amazing, because I have talked to women who, like me, stayed in the marriage for a really long time. And unless you're able to go back and take responsibility for allowing, what happened to happen, and or take responsibility for staying or going along with or being passive. A lot of people come out of their relationships thinking, oh my gosh, he did everything. He did this to me. He did that to me. It was all him. And not seeing like these little micro agreements that we make along the way.
Yes, yes. Oh, I love that word. Can I use that word?
You can use that one.
Microagreement.
I
That's
just made it
so
up on the
good.
spot. So it still hasn't been trademarked yet. It's up for grabs.
It's so true. It's so true. I think about, I was working at State Department at the time, very much in this world of cross-cultural development, right? And a lot of Americans had partners who were from other countries. And so that agreement, right, about like being in that club, about having that direct relationship with someone foreign was a very strong hook that took me a while to be like, is this serving me? Or am I just doing this because of the clout that it gets me in some of these circles?
Oh, wow. Yeah. Yeah. The social pressure. The like, this is what gives me status. This is what makes me look good.
Yes. Yes.
Wow. Incredible.
Right.
So and you had said you started to question, what am I saying yes to and why?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Right. And kind of recognizing like what that yes was costing me.
Yeah.
And I keep going back to one of my spiritual teachers at the time. It said like, your life changes when you begin to care about how you feel. And I just started to care about like how I felt inside, like, upon waking, not really about what I had to do, but just like, do I like me? Do I like this person? And how I'm showing up in the world.
Yeah, this is how I feel. Why do I feel the way I feel? Why do I feel this angst?
Right.
Why am I feeling shame right now? That's actually the question I'll ask often. I'll be like, sometimes an emotion will just come over me and I'm like, what just happened? Where did this come from?
Where did it come from? Yeah.
Learning to investigate what's happening inside of ourselves. So good. All right. So you were with the community, you started making these changes. How did that impact or precipitate the end of the relationship?
Yeah, I mean, I think the more that I grew comfortable in asking that why question, asking about those micro agreements, and identifying what actually felt better to me, it just became more and more clear that I felt better about myself when I was not with him. Like I just liked who I was. I wasn't as resentful and passive aggressive and like, just the friction that we had at that time. And thankfully it never became into a really toxic, abusive kind of space, but we just didn't enjoy each other. And I just didn't like who I was, who I was becoming when I was with him. So I think it was lots of little nudges, right? Around that helped me identify like this, I don't want to raise this kid feeling like this. And so he was just a baby, our son, 2, when I decided like, all right, we're going to separate. And I wasn't committed to separating forever, but I wanted to just see how it could feel, like how we could both, how it would be better. And so just got a rental that wasn't too far away, right, from where he was staying. And so that the kid could still be in both places and see both of us regularly. And we tried that for, I think, 4 months. And then I was just like, yes, I don't,
this is a lot better.
I'm clear. So, and that was really hard for him, right? Because he grew up in a very collective, like the social pressure was immense, and he was really devastated around the idea of divorce that felt so soon. Because at that point we'd been married 5-6 years, so not really long time, but I was clear, like it wasn't gonna change fast enough, well enough for me.
Right.
So, yeah.
Wow, that's so inspiring. I know, and I know here's the thing, divorce never, it's like, I know it's weird to say that divorce is inspiring, but I just love how you were so in touch with yourself. Because that's literally the problem that most of us had before we chose our spouses, was not being in touch with who we were, where we were going, our capacity, what was amazing about us.
Yeah.
And then for some of us, unlike you, we stayed in the marriage, continuing to not be in touch with who we were, what was good for us, what was healthy, what we wanted, our God-given talents, and, where God wanted our lives to go.
Right.
And, I mean, I literally was in my marriage until my ex was like, I'm really not changing and I'm going to go file for a divorce.
Wow.
And mine was seriously toxic. My relationship was seriously toxic, but I was that out of touch with myself.
Yeah.
And so I just really admire just your wisdom with being in touch with yourself, even though it led to like you filing for a divorce for what quote unquote people will think no good reason. Mm-hmm. Do you wonder exactly how divorced women just like you are meeting eligible men who want a real relationship and a commitment? They're doing it by dating with their core values. Your core values are the GPS that lead you to the partner you've been looking for. When you use your core values on dating apps, text messages, and at social events, you will easily connect with your true match partner without chasing, settling, or wasting time with non-committal men. I have taught exactly how to do this in the 2-hour Core Values Dating Blueprint course available on my website, shadecurry.com/dating. That's SADECURRY.com/dating. You will learn exactly how to identify your core values and use them on your dating profile, how to ask the right questions via text, and how to tell the right stories on dates, so that you attract the right people and repel those who aren't right for you. If you're ready to meet your true match, hop over to shadecurry.com/dating or click the link in the show notes. Now back to the episode. But
that was spot on. Yep. Heard that many, many times.
Yeah, but what's the value of a life? Yes. Right? The value of your existence that it should be spent in that state. Like, you see what I'm saying? Is that really honoring the value of a woman's existence, of another person's existence? That, oh no, you signed this piece of paper and it doesn't matter how much of a dark bubble this relationship is, you just need to stay in it because, you signed on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a really radical way of looking at it. I know it's not a popular opinion, but I have talked to enough women going through divorce and read their stories and worked with them to know that it's really about what is my life worth? And when you see the worth of your life, you're like, this ain't it. This ain't it.
Right. And I think for me, it really started to crystallize as I was exploring that question about like, what is my life worth and why am I willing even to sacrifice at that level? Where did that thought come from? Like, why is my joy not of value to my own self that I would recreate my life differently? And really started to identify like, the women in my life, right? My grandmother, my great-grandmother, all of them were defer to the man. You need to show up for, right? Like, these are very loud, at least in my cultural tradition, voices and influences, right? About like, you just suck it up.
Yeah. Your value is in making the man happy. Even if his demands for happiness are destroying you.
Yes.
Like
right. So it's helpful too to like recognize or to tease that out, right? Like, this isn't mine. It was just part of the lineage. It was just part of the cultural stories that I inherited, but it doesn't have to be my story. And certainly not when I add that up to, my grandmother got a divorce after 40 years. Like there were separations that when they finally recognized, hey, my joy is worth something. So why would I follow that pattern?
Oh my gosh. And this is hilarious because I'm from Nigeria. So, I talked to some of my friends and we laugh at like, our mothers and grandmothers who are like, oh no, they didn't get a divorce. And I'm like, y'all did. I'll tell you what it looks like. So for the Nigerian community, I don't know if this is the same for like other African countries or other cultures. What it looks like is the woman stays with the guy, like it's this completely loveless, toxic, maybe even abusive marriage. Then her children grow up, they get married, they have kids, and then she goes to help her children with their kids.
Ooh.
So she's living with her children.
Right? Yeah, like I will go.
nanny, and she literally leaves her husband, goes to nanny for her kids, and like that's how the previous generation separated.
Yeah, right.
And then even better,
and who knows right, like if that was the option available, right? Because they didn't have the financial capability or what, many other things. But that makes sense. Like there was still y'all weren't happy. You weren't happy. So like that's something to be said about prioritizing your life around joy.
Yes, 100%.
Like,
all right, let's talk about what happened next. Like, so how your process of like, recapturing your joy, recapturing yourself after the divorce, dating again. Like, how did you know you were always going to remarry? Were you like nothing from me for a while? What were your thoughts?
I was definitely on a nothing for me for a while, and not out of like desire, because I love partnership. I'm a homebody. I like to be home with people and have family close around. I grew up in a big family, so it felt really weird to have it so quiet, especially if my son then was with him for a week and then it was just me by myself, and that felt really strange. So there was certainly, I think the first period was just mourning. There was celebration, but there was more sadness of just like what was lost. And so that was tough. One of the things that really helped me, and I don't even remember how this happened, but both of my sisters, who are both younger than me, were like coming through DC for different situations around work and school. So we ended up living together for a year, right as my divorce was processing. So that was like a beautiful kind of moment to be held with them through this. And then after that, I decided to move back south to my parents to just recover. I mean, it, like any other big life chapter, it took recovery. It took just, I had to let go of a lot of responsibilities and just attend to, what was going on internally. And it was kind of around the same wrestling of, if my life is mine, how do I define that? Like, what does that look like for me? And how can I feel okay about that? Like, right, not have the shame around wanting to direct my own life, wanting to be the author of it. Because there was lots of old stuff to just,
and I know you had said through. You also lost a whole community, and you actually liked those people.
Right. I really did enjoy them. I still do very much enjoy them, but just not at the intensity of that first few years. But
there's a, and I don't know if this is a real concept. I just call it secondary losses that happen with divorce. Like, most people look at it and are like, oh yeah, it's the parents that are, separating and it's impacting the kids. But for a lot of people experiencing divorce, there's, like you said, there's the move. So there's leaving your environment that you're accustomed to. That by itself is like really high on the stress scale.
Definitely.
Then there's the change in your routine. Routines for your kids, a change in identity, because being married is such a big identity thing for us. You lose that, and then you lose your community, you lose your friends, you lose, I mean, maybe the one party you wanted to go to every month.
Right, exactly. I want to go to that wedding because y'all know, like, they were dropping a whole lot of money. I want to go witness what that's like, right? Like,
there is a lot of grief and sadness that comes up, even if you're the one that filed for the divorce. There's a misconception that it's this, oh, well, you just filed for a divorce and you're moving on with your life. No, not really. It's such a painful thing.
It is.
To have to come to that point that I get what you mean by having to take the time to heal and to just really recover yourself after that.
And I've been journaling since I was like 8. So before this podcast, I went back through some of my old journals of this time period, and there were just pages of affirmations like, I forgive myself, I'm worthy of love, And we're just pages of the same sentence over and over again. That's kind of like where I was, because I was trying to rewire literally like how I thought about myself. And that was, it's not easy. It doesn't happen quick. But I think it was all the better for it. And I feel like that, you know, the challenging roller coaster that was, I continue as angry as I was too about like some of how, you know, the process how he showed up for the process. I still held the vision of us having, you know, a collective blended family event at some point, because we have a son together and because I want that experience for him to not, you know, our stuff, his parents' stuff, not to always be the cloud in the room whenever we're together, right? Like I really wanted to hold on to that. And it took us quite a number of years. But when our son turned 10, we had a big birthday party for him, and both sides showed up. And that was really, really wonderful, right? Because at that point we were both remarried, we both had other kids, you know, and just having an extended family from both sides. So just to also say, like, that started with a hope in the right during the mourning phase. There was just like, I hope someday we can do something like that. And it took some time, but it happened.
Yeah, you had the hope, and that was enough to get it started. That was the seed, and you did the work to keep that hope alive.
Yes.
Throughout. And that's the power of vision. That's the power of just having a view of your future as being brighter than that dark moment.
Yes.
So good. Oh my goodness, what a gem, what a gift. Thank you for sharing that. When did you start dating after the divorce?
It was about 3 years. I mean, it was probably a good year and a half. I did not date at all. And then I kind of inched my way into it. And that those 18 months was pretty intentional, because I knew my habits, right? About like wanting that external gratification and I was just like, I got to cut that off. I just really got to focus. But after I did move into this new period of dating, and I was in a small town in North Carolina at that point, so there was no local dating to be had. So I just focused on online opportunities.
Okay, so online dating, and then you met people outside your city.
Yes,
online.
Exactly. And that really worked for me, because I'm a writer, because I like to think about people more holistically. Like it helped to have, you know, just have those profiles that kind of gave you, you know, and I know profiles are questionable, but at that point it was just like, I could, you know, reading about someone felt like an easier, you know, first meeting than a random occurrence, right? Of just seeing. Anyway.
Yeah, this is where the mindset, it's funny that you would say that. Like another woman having exactly that same experience would be like, this is terrible.
Absolutely.
Reading all these profiles. And that's why I always tell my class, I'm like, listen, it's literally how you think about it. Let me help you figure out if your thoughts are serving you.
Yes. And find the strategy, right, that works for you.
Yes, 100%.
Exactly. Like,
I'm like, guys come everywhere. I mean, on this podcast alone, all the women have met their husbands in all the ways that everybody thinks is impossible. Online, offline, on a plane. I mean, it's just it all
wide
works.
variety.
All of it works.
It does.
We just have to get healed. We got to get our mind right, and then we have to get in the game.
Yeah.
So when you met him online, like how did you differentiate between him and, I can imagine, all the kinds of profiles that you were seeing?
Yeah. So during that time, you know, as I was like, you know, reading about people, seeing, you know, just kind of having that ocean reopened to myself. I was also recognizing, oh, look, I can get pulled into a lot of different directions here. Why don't you define who you want first, and then we will go match.
100%.
So then I right, like I spent a lot of time, literally a vision board on this human. So there were the physical characteristics, there were the emotional intelligence that I was just like high on the list because that was not available last go round. There was the creativity. I wanted someone who was artistic and who valued being in that mode and method and creating something beautiful. I wanted them to be eco-conscious and I've been vegan for many years, so that was high on my list. You know, just like some of these lifestyle values that I wanted to be matched with, so that I wasn't, you know, causing more friction. So I made a big list.
You met a man who matched all of this stuff on 100%. All right, 100%. Ladies, you heard it.
It is possible. Yes.
It is possible.
Yes.
All right, keep going. I'll try not to interrupt you too much because I'm just like.
I was trying even to find that vision board, but it's somewhere around here. But it
you're remarried, so obviously it worked.
It worked. It did. It did. He's incredible, and I think though, like that clarity of like my hope, my intention, of who I wanted to meet, and the values that person had was. Then I recognized him really fast after I did that. Right,
and
like after I got really clear.
Right. Yeah. And it helped you say no to all the people who wanted him.
Yes, absolutely. Because there were lots of them. And I was like, oh, no, you don't, not even close. No, don't get distracted by the abs. No, that is not the human.
The way I describe it to my clients when we're working through what you're describing here, I'll be like, listen, you need to get to know this human so well that when you go on a date, it's like he's sitting beside you and he's telling you, that's not me. That like he needs to be so real. We do what we call the irresistible relationship vision. And I was like, this vision has to be so real. Like you need to embody this relationship so that you know immediately.
Right.
Somebody isn't the one.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so important. It's so important because and just the joy of finding, like recognizing, right? Like I remember that moment of recognizing, and then it was so funny because we had there was some kind of like technical glitch happening because whatever, I don't even, the app was just like, you know, one person had to say yes and the other person confirm, and then they share, you know, the details, but then he had to pay for it. And anyway, there was some kind of thing that kept us from each other for like 3 days. Like we couldn't communicate even though we had recognized each other. And I tell you, it was just like the anticipation to then build up to like, what's going on, universe? Like I thought you were gonna like make this flow easily once we found each other. And but afterwards though, like we started talking in like January, and by April we were living together.
Oh, so good.
It was so clear.
So good. How long have you been married now?
We just celebrated 8 years.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you.
And you had more kids?
We had one more. Yeah. He just turned 5, or well, yeah, 5.5. And he is just such a blessing. And the older one, who is now 12, is just like such, I feel like so blessed by it, because my older son from my first marriage now has 3 little brothers from, you know, how his parents got remarried. And when these 4 boys are together, it just lights up a room. They are so happy, and they just authentically love and play, and you know, despite the age differences, and it's incredible, like to witness like that intention as well, because not only did my first husband and I get remarried, but our partners are so good for us that I feel like it just makes the whole unit work better.
Yes, like, and it's amazing to see that, like, what a gift to the both of you.
Yeah.
For you to have recognized that, hey, this isn't working.
Yeah.
Because obviously it sounds like he's happier too, your ex.
He is without question. Of course, now he says it, but like at the time, right? It's like, no. But yeah, I really do think like the woman he is with now has helped him heal and grow, and shows up in all the ways that he needed someone to show up. And I was
so she was down for the parties. She was like,
she's African. what can I say? Just able, capable. I don't know,
Yeah,
but
I
she's
don't
more
know. Listen,
willing.
I'm African and I am not down for those parties. As a kid, oh my God, if my mom said we were going for a party, I would try to
Uh-huh.
take a book along. And she'd be like, that's not
Mm.
social. You can't take a book to a party. I'm like, I need a book. So listen,
Not everybody.
not
I hear you.
everybody,
It's
not
not
every African
everybody.
is down for it.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's
But
amazing. So, and I know we've talked about just so many keys to your success along the way. Like, obviously, you are a very conscious, wise, spiritual person who was just very self aware. I think I would say your self awareness was what clued you in every step of the way,
mhm.
as well as your, I guess, would I say vision or your ability to just have love for the situation. And because as a coach, we say, we create our thoughts, create our results. It's like your thoughts created these results, not just for you, but for like your entire sphere of influence.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like it's like you prayed and forgave and journaled and visioned all of this, and everyone around you just, reaped the benefit of it.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for saying
Well
that.
done. Well done.
For
That's just so beautiful. I love your story so much. So I want to ask you, like, you've given so much wisdom, but if you wanted to, give a word of advice to my audience and these women who are, some are going through divorce right now, some are divorced, some are dating. Most people listening to this are interested in dating. What would be like your word of advice to them?
Yeah, I think it is to really get clear about what you want, and not just in the characteristics of that other human, but in the type of environment of like, how do you describe the partnership, the relationship, the ultimate marriage or whatever? Like, what does that feel like? Because like the identification with the thing of being married without having it be defined really just did not serve me. So being able to really articulate deeply, I want to roll over and just smile from the inside out at this other human, who is sleeping next to me. I want to feel supported when I'm in my low moments. I want to be vulnerable and be met emotionally by that other person who can just hear and listen and support me, right? Like really being able to articulate those things about what you want and what you need, so that you can recognize it in other people faster and not waste a lot of time, right? And just the superficial stuff. So
Oh my
yeah,
gosh,
I
so
hope
good.
let us take care of ourselves in that way,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
when we come to marriage and we come to these relationships, not in a utilitarian way, like, oh, we're serving
Yeah.
ourselves up as a sacrifice for the people in that in that environment, but like, no, this is for me. This is a
Yeah.
gift that I'm giving myself also. And what am
Yeah.
I looking for
Right.
in
Right.
this?
Yeah, and like you said, it then ripples outwards. So that mode of operation, that self-love that you prioritize yourself, right? That has made me a better mother without question. Has made me a better daughter and a sister, right? Like just I show up to my relationships much more healthy and grounded because of that self-love practice and that recognition that I deserve to be loved, and I feel
Yes.
met in that.
Oh,
So
I love
yeah,
it.
we're
Love it
good.
so much. Nina, thank
You.
you. I'm deeply appreciative of you coming and sharing this gold. Like to you,
Mm.
you're like, oh my God, this is just how I kind of live. I'm like, listen, you have no idea. This is just so much gold for the listeners. Thank you
Oh,
for being
excellent.
here. Can you
Yeah.
please tell everyone how they can find you, if they want to follow you, reach out to you, talk to you, hire you for their
Yeah.
coaching practices? Please let us know what
Yes.
your social media handles are.
Oh, love it. Yeah. So I'm Nina.Everflow on Instagram and Nina Everflow on Facebook, and on my website is ninaeverflow.com. And I do offer like free consultations, mostly because I like talking to people and having tea and getting to know what big visions look like for folks. But also, if you're curious about how you can build online courses online that really center human experience and are inclusive in an intentional and equitable way, I am that's one of my favorite things to talk about. So happy to connect with folks around any of those topics, and even this one for sure. Because, what we learn from divorce, what we learn from the hardest lessons of life, I'm always down for that conversation.
Yes. So good. Thank you, Nina. I appreciate you so much. I'm going to be the first one clicking on that link to book my call with you. Thank you, everyone, for your time and attention. Please follow Nina, reach out to her, hire her if you're a coach or an online entrepreneur. I want to thank you for your time and attention, and I will talk to you next time. Thanks for listening today. If you are ready to get married after divorce, I want to invite you to download my free 8-video training specifically designed to help divorced women date with ease and get married again. Head over to sadecurry.com to get started. That's SADECURRY.com. I'll see you inside.